and welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, like its Facebook page, and subscribe to its YouTube channel, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also on my Twitch at DT2Phillips. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips and subscribe to my YouTube channel at DT2Phillips. And follow Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram and Twitch at EdSmith313. So, got a few topics to talk about. One of them we're going to get to right now. The Detroit Pistons have moved Dwane Casey from their head coaching position to a position within their front office. Mm-hmm. So, the good news is for Pistons fans everywhere, Dwane Casey is no longer their head coach. So,
that should be not only the good news, it should be the main and important news, because I think we can all agree, based on not just this season, but the past few seasons, this could not continue. It was time to see a new voice in that locker room. I understand that the players may they respect, and they admire Coach Casey, and that's good and noble and everything else. But in this league, you're brought along to help us win games. And at this point, he just was not doing enough, whether it had been certain rotations or not getting enough out of key players, or frankly dealt with bad luck, because between the roster that was compiled for him before Troy Weaver left, remember, we're talking years of incompetent general manager moves that were done on the Pistons' behalf, whether it had been the late stages of Stan Van Gundy or whatever. But still, there was a lot to repair in a sense. And I think, frankly, from the beginning, Coach Casey was going to be seen as that bridge coach to whatever the new general manager would want to bring in. As was what we see here with Troy Weaver, he's now going to get a chance to search for his own head coach. But I'll get to that in a second. As for Coach Casey himself, I mentioned that a time was needed for a new voice, but there's no way you can't at least acknowledge the fact that we did see some growth from some players for this season. I think had Cade Cunningham not gotten injured, we would have seen more from him. Just like we saw, what we were able to see from both Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, among a few other players. But that's your key core, your young establishment pieces, your pillars, so to speak. It's Cade, it's Ivey, it's Duren, and it's whatever you're going to do with this upcoming draft piece. That's draft class, I should say. That's the kind of vision, the kind of plan that Troy Weaver has been trying to formulate. And I think at this point now, it's the time to take that next step and find that head coach. Now, as to who do you think that head coach could be, first and foremost, Taylor, I want to hear your options to who you think the Pistons could potentially go after before I give you my list.
Oh, yeah. There were a couple of them there were a few of them that were selected. Also, including Bucks, Milwaukee Bucks assistant coach. Forgot his name, but
Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah, Atkinson. Yeah. So there's also UConn head coach.
Kevin Ollie
or something like that.
Kevin Ollie.
That's right. Kevin Ollie. That's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So Kevin Ollie, head coaching candidates. Charles Lee is the Bucks assistant coach.
Oh, okay.
That's the one. Yep.
That's the name you're thinking of.
Udoka.
Ime Udoka. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the rumor as well. So
is that your list?
Also, Raptors assistant Adrian Griffin and Miami Heat assistant Chris Quinn are also among the candidates. So yeah, there were two more I found from Bleacher Report.
Mm-hmm. Was that all that you've been able to see on your list, or in terms of your personal want list for the Pistons?
I believe I just find the candidates and just. Well,
I could see that. Well,
it could go either way.
I could agree with you on a couple of names in terms of impact, culture, identity, and what this team needs. I think it starts and ends with defense. But I'll just throw out a few names that I've been seeing, A, on the radar, and B, I think that could be a potentially good fit. Atkinson, I agree with you with. Ime Udoka, I absolutely agree with you on. Despite his package, I would still take him in a heartbeat. But other names to consider that wouldn't really be much of a surprise if I woke up and heard this news tomorrow. But I think they're going to take their time with this. But still, the names that I would a name that I would not mind that I would not be surprised to hear would be Jerry Stackhouse, former player. You seeing what he's doing at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, he was another.
I could actually see that get enough groundswell and support to where if you announce it, it will be seen as a rather positive move. Now it's still got to go out there and deliver results, but I think the move would be seen as a positive one as compared to who you could have gotten to replace Coach Casey, as opposed to the other names that I mentioned. Now, I did hear a couple of Twitter users or people on social media mention, "Hey, why not Rashid?" I think Rashid would be much better as an assistant coach or a member on the staff, not a full blown head coach spot. If you want to give that position to a Jerry Stackhouse or whomever instead, if you want to go that former player route, why not go with Stack? That's just my view, though. But those are names I see as potential. We both have a similar agreement on a couple of names, but I think one that I keep seeing appearing that I wouldn't be surprised if he's a potential finalist would be Jerry Stackhouse.
All right. Well, yeah, Stackhouse used to play for the Pistons.
Oh yeah,
Now, as
he's one. He
some
was
may
basically,
remember.
if you remember, for those that are as prevalent with Pistons knowledge, he was essentially your best player, or at least the best player after Grant Hill during the Teal years. And once Grant Hill left, he was de facto your best player, and then he was traded. But I think he was to Washington. But I think we did okay out of that one because we got Rip Hamilton out of that deal. So I think that turned out pretty well for us. But it will be nice to see. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Stack come back to Detroit and have a full circle with him as a coach. I wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me already. So, yeah, Pistons, we'll see. We'll stay on top of them as well. The Lions, they
Oh,
traded.
if you don't mind me asking, I thought I at least had a couple more, at least one more note, so to speak, on the Pistons. Um, Not to mention what this new coach search, which I think they should take their time with. They shouldn't rush to make a decision. If you want to make a decision on getting a new coach, at least wait bare minimum until after you know what you're going to do with your draft pick. Whether you find out that night at the lotto, or you wait a little bit more after and wait until the draft itself, or shortly thereafter. But I think the Pistons should take their due diligence and look at what other options are available, and if need be, try to swing for some options as well. This is Troy Weaver's call. This is him looking for his head coach now. So we'll see what he. Hopefully, he can make that connective connection move the way we were able to see Steve Eisen make with Lalonde, and of course with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Well, we shall see. It's still to be determined.
All right. So, with all that being said, that clears up everything on the Pistons. The Lions, they have traded cornerback Jeff Okudah to the Atlanta Falcons for a fifth-round draft pick. Okudah was injury prone. Yeah, he got a pick six in Chicago, but that was not much else that he did over the course of the years. He only came up with like at least a couple interceptions in his tenure as a Lion. It just didn't work out for him that well.
Yeah, I can say at the very least he was making some improvements in 2022, but unfortunately, injuries just cut his season short, which has seemed to be one theme of his stay here in Detroit. Whether it would be injuries or lack of developing play or growth on the field, which we saw obviously the worst of during the Matt Patricia years. We saw minimal improvements, but again, it just was not enough, or probably was not a strong enough deal to convince the coaching staff and Brad Holmes as to want to even consider picking up his fifth-year option, which would have meant you kept him for this year and next year. And oh, by the way, you're paying him an $11 million with your salary. No, I don't think so, especially when you consider the fact that they made the moves that they did in the offseason, getting Cam Sutton, getting Emmanuel Mosley, getting CJ GJ. Those were done for a reason. The writing was on the wall for Jeff Okudah. And frankly, I think this is a needed start for him. This is a needed move for him. I'll give him a fresh start in a new area. with the Falcons, maybe they'll be able to use him in a much better way. But with everything with the moves that were done by the Lions in free agency and still potentially yet to be done in the draft, there was just no. And like I mentioned before, with the 5th-year option not being picked up, and knowing that you're not going to pay him $11 million, instead of letting him walk away for nothing, try to get something from him. And I think that's what they did by getting this 5th-round draft pick.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the Lions are stacked with talent in the corner position. And they got the NFL draft next, and that's got to be something to watch for.
Yeah, for sure, because they have tremendous capital based on the moves that they've made over the past couple of years. Even recently now with this Jeff Okudah deal, they now have multiple draft picks options, multiple draft pick selections in essentially every round except the 3rd round. That's what I last checked. So they got multiple choices. Obviously, in the first round based on the Matthew Stafford deal, and then of course deals made with Minnesota and other teams. They now have multiple picks, so that's a lot of capital that you can use. You have like 5 of the top 75, top 80 draft picks. That's a lot that you can use for potential moves, whether it be to store up, make massive needed improvements on your defense, which frankly, with a bevy of picks like that, I could use that to help build some pieces, or you can use a couple of those chess pieces to potentially move up and get a player that you really covet or really want, or a player that you think there's no way they're going to fall to you at 6, even on your wildest dream, which I could see them wanting to do that, for example, a Will Anderson. Now, if by the grace of God, Will Anderson drops to you at 6, yes, run up to the podium, and I don't give a damn what the NFL says about turning in your pick too early. That is the heist of the century if you're able to pull that off. But still, if that option is not there, if you think Arizona is going to consider taking him, if you think that there's a chance that even if he doesn't go to 3, there's a chance that Seattle could take him at 5. Hey, if you want him that bad, use your capital, move up to get him. So that's why I have Will Anderson on my big board. I have Jalen Carter on my big board for obvious reasons. By the way, my big board is going to be a compilation of names of players that I've mentioned before in previous episodes. Some I may not have mentioned before, but I think you'll be able to get the gist of a type of big board or war plan that I want to see the Lions make improve of in key spots throughout their team. So I have at the top Will Anderson, Jalen Carter. I think it's pretty obvious. You need more presence with your front 7, getting to the quarterback, attacking the quarterback. In my opinion, you have the best 2 D linemen in Anderson and Carter. With your quarterback spot, I know some people may prefer CJ Stroud. Myself, I prefer Bryce Young. If they think there's a chance that Bryce Young could be there at 3, and if you really want him, well, there it is. But again, let's not forget the fact that the Lions did have a pre-draft visit. They hosted CJ Stroud along with Hendon Hooker. So even if they don't trade up and get Stroud, there is a chance they could take Hooker. I know people are saying, oh, maybe they'll take him at 18. I don't think that's a possibility. I don't see Hooker going anywhere until maybe the 3rd round. Maybe a team will trade up to try to get him the 2nd round. But if so, that's where I could see the Lions potentially doing something if they want Hooker. But that's it in terms of what they need to do on the QB front. But other than that, the theme here is defense. Whether it be another edge rusher and Tyree Wilson, who was a big, massive giant of a human being. Christian from Texas Tech, mind you. Christian Gonzalez, I already mentioned him, cornerback from Oregon, as well as Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. He was, in fact, roommates and teammates with Kirby Joseph before the Lions drafted him. So I think a reunion with those two in the secondary would do dividends in more ways than one. Here's a couple of names I may not have mentioned. Deonte Banks, another corner out of Maryland. I think he could be a solid pickup either at 18 or in the 2nd round or later. Lucas Van Ness, I could see him as a potential edge rusher that the Lions may want to go and get if they see him as the best player available in either at 18 or in the 2nd round. Nolan Smith, I know, again, they don't really value linebackers per se. Like, for example, they got Malcolm Rodriguez in the 6th round, and he essentially became one of, if not their best performing linebacker outside of maybe Anzalone. And so even though that's testament to how good Rodrigo did, I think it's also a bad mark on how really awful that linebacking core is. So Maybe if you want to consider taking out a feeler to improve that room, Nolan Smith could be the way to go. But if you want to stick in terms of fixing your secondary, I would say Joey Porter Jr. could be another option. That is, assuming the Steelers don't try to make a deal of sorts to try and take him. Because you know what? His dad played for them, and he was a coach there for them for several years. In terms of that, if you want to flip to the opposite side, go back to the offense, there is one name I've consistently said, at least in terms of the running back spot, that I would prefer over almost essentially any running back in this draft, and that's even including Bijan Robinson. And that's Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. I mentioned before that Gibbs, with his speed, his acceleration, his big play home run ability, and how he is a weapon out of the backfield and how he can perform behind this offensive line. He reminds me basically Jameson Williams in running back form. And I think reuniting him with his former teammate JMO and putting him in the same offense could be a potentially deadly combination. But in terms of the rest of the offense, if you want to keep adding more depth to your best strength, to your best unit, which is your offensive line, I see two names that stand out: Darnell Wright, from Tennessee, Peter Skolonsky from Northwestern, and also potentially Steve Avila from TCU. Those are names I see if the Lions wanted to go offensive line, guard, whatever. For depth purposes, I could see that happening in the first couple of rounds, considering the fact that they may not be able to pay, both Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker, if you know what I'm saying. So that could be an option. And then to round it all off, bring it back full circle, I figured, hey, defensive tackle that they may want to look at in the first couple of rounds or three. Keep it local with the thing from last year from Aiden Hutchinson. Why not bring in his old teammate Mozzie Smith? So that will be my big board for the Lions for what they should consider in the first two rounds, knowing the draft capital that they have and the potential moves that they could make. Now, I know for a fact that they have visits scheduled, or they have them currently scheduled with the following players: Will Anderson, I've already mentioned, C.J. Stroud, Hendon Hooker, Jalen Carter, but also a potential wild card here, Anthony Richardson. He's been getting a lot of name, a lot of attention, a lot of hype throughout before and especially since the combine. Now people are putting out articles and rumors that he may go number one, he may go top 5, he may go this. So that is a potential wild card name to look at if you're the Lions. But for me, I see it as a potential smoke screen if you're thinking that high for QB. But that's just my opinion, because at the end of the day, all options are on the table. Brad Holmes has stated, and Dan Campbell himself stated this week on the Rich Eisen show, all options are potential and are available here. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us in one of these early rounds, and they'll pick Penei's brother, Noah Sewell. He is a linebacker. He is from Oregon, and I would not be surprised if we see that being done as well. Maybe not in the early rounds, but maybe potentially as a mid-round flyer.
All right. Yeah, those are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of options.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have
from the entire draft board.
You got to have
rounds
a plan
1 through 7.
Yeah, you need a backup. You need a contingency plan. Trust me, a part of me even considered putting Jalen Hyatt, the wideout from Tennessee, on this list, because we saw what he did throughout the year, especially against Alabama. I believe he was awarded the Biletnikoff, or whether the award you call for the best wide receiver in the nation. It helps that for the most of the season, he also had Hendon Hooker throwing to him. But again, that could be another reason why, potential red herring, why they're interviewing Hooker as well. But then, just names to throw out, but also consider as well. Because I think, like I said, all options are on the table for this draft of the Lions, because this may be the last chance or the last time for a while that they'll be in this type of situation or position to where, hey, we're drafting high and we all have all these big extra picks. Let's make a move to try and compete for a championship now.
Yeah. Well, I believe that's probably the entire list. Just a lot of draft picks to absorb in, draft pick ideas for us to absorb into our brains. Wow,
imagine what these GMs go through in the lead up to the draft.
Yep, they'll have a lot of thinking to do, especially at the top with Brad Holmes. So the Tigers start 2-9. They bench Baez. He kind of needed a mental breather or something like that after committing that base running gaffe, and then they win 3 straight. The last two at home against the San Francisco Giants, both in walk-off fashion. Nick Maton, a walk-off 3-run shot last night, and then Miguel Cabrera, of all people, overaging but still getting the job done in 11 innings, 7-6 with an RBI single, scoring the guy from the runner from third. So the Tigers, I don't know. They climbed up to fourth place. The Royals 4-11. But the Tigers, close to the White Sox, they're 6-9. Tigers are 5-9. But
if you want to
still
look on
in
the
the
bright,
beginning.
if you want to look on the more optimistic side of things, or a glass half full side of things, they are 4.5 games out of first place, and it's only 2 weeks into the season. But it's the worst. You're one of the worst divisions in baseball, so I wouldn't really hang my hat on that type of accomplishment. But still, this is about what the Tigers have been doing on a week-to-week basis. Right. And frankly, from what I've seen in that opening series against the Rays, which, by the way, that's no, I'm not all for more victories, obviously, but when you consider the fact that it is the same team that just now suffered its first loss of the season the other day or so, I think it lets you know how strong of a team that the Tigers were getting just to open the season, and seeing how they have played for the most part in the game since. I know they've had a couple of bad hiccups since then, one against Boston, the other against Toronto, but that you could attest that more so to a combination of obviously bad work from your bullpen. Giving up all those runs means, your pen did not have a good day, and of course, inopportune at bats. Primarily horrible production that we were seeing from Javi Baez. And of course, it crescendoed with him staring at his hit. I guess that was the only thing he'd hit in a good while. It was like, oh, wow, that's a good thing. That must be what a base hit looks like. And instead of hustling to where he potentially could have get the third and get a better scoring position, he has to settle for second. And then when you consider the fact that he had other troubles before that, like you said, Taylor, he just probably needed that break in terms of not just for his game, but also mentally as well to get his head back in the game. Maybe AJ Hinch knew that. That's why he had that discussion with him, and he knows Javi is a veteran. That's why he let him play the next day. But it was just limited. He had an at bat, but he got a hit. Good for him. And you see him continue that stretch here with these next two games against San Fran. He goes 4 for 8. 2 doubles, 4 RBIs, only 2 strikeouts. That's good patience. Like, for goodness sake, he had a 12-pitch at bat today.
Yeah.
Think about that before he hit that clutch double that made it a 1-run game. So that's the type of improvement that we want to see from Baez. Less, as much as you can cut down on the strikeouts as humanly possible, but more patient, drawn-out at-bats. Timely hitting, quality hitting. Prove that you're not going to give us another example of one of the worst contracts in baseball when we're just finally now about to get out the albatross that was the last year's of Miguel Cabrera, because that's the PTSD that we're seeing flashing in Tigers fans' eyes whenever we've been seeing Baez play since day damn one. He's been playing like a DOA player that got the bag and think, oh, okay, I'm just going to ride off. But maybe what Hinch did with this benching, maybe it lit a fire under his behind. Maybe it was something that he needed. I won't say it's equivalent to, the rant that Jim Leland gave in early 2006 when the team got blew out 10-2 or something like that. But I have noticed, by Cleveland, correct. But I have noticed the change in tone, the change in attention, and just how the team has played in general, with a different purpose, a different resolve, a different fire, so to speak. And it's shown in effort. It's shown in key play from key players. Like, for example, Maton, he's hit 3 home runs this week alone, including that walk-off and extra innings last night against San Fran. So you want to see him keep that up. It's going to prove that you were the obvious winners of that Gregory Soto trade. Thank goodness. And by the way, for today, for Miguel Cabrera, I find it fitting, coincidental, and ironic that on Jackie Robinson Day, his last Jackie Robinson Day, because he is retiring, on the day that we honor Jackie Robinson, a player that obviously broke the color barrier, but not just for Black people and African Americans, but for so many people as well, uh, other cultures, um, for other players to get involved. But we will see eventually over the years. It wasn't just the Hank Aaron's and the Willie Mays. It was the Roberto Clementes. It was the Pedro Martinez. It was the Albert Pujols. It was guys that we will eventually see from other overseas venues, like Hideo Nomo, like Hideki Matsui, like Ichiro Suzuki, like Shohei Ohtani. And of course what we see now with Miguel Cabrera. So all that would not have been possible had it not been for a Jackie Robinson to begin with. And you know what? I'll give Matt Shepard this on this day on this annual day where the MLB does their best to honor a true icon. On this iteration, yeah, it's a little corny, but it's the right call. On this day when the MLB honors an icon, the Tigers icon of their own walks it off. And I think for Miggy to do that in his farewell season, hey, good for him. Good for him. It's the most you can ask for at this point for Mickey, because he's been on steep decline. He was able to get his milestone 500 home run, 3,000 hit. So you just want to enjoy this season for him for what it is and what it will be.
Yeah, it was due. The heck with it. Nick Maton, the Wolfman, is hitting 195 now. He was hitting 070 earlier, but he's caught up.
At least he's above the Mendoza line.
Yeah, Baez was hitting exactly 100, but now he's hitting 184. 4 hits the last 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
4 for his last 8, including 2 walks. 4 RBIs total in that span after being sit in Toronto.
And like I mentioned before, only 2 strikeouts, so he's doing much better in terms of
two strikeouts.
With his discipline and reading the pitches carefully and much better. That's what you want to see. Exactly, but also recognizing the pitch is much better. That's what you want to see from a guy that you're paying $140 million to.
Yes, exactly.
But they got a bit of a statement series coming up against Cleveland, in my opinion.
The Guardians.
If they can prove, let's see how they do. If they take 1 or 2 games here, let's say they take 2 games, I would like that. I think it would show that, hey, we're not going to be anybody's doormat in this division. Even if we don't win, we're going to make sure that you're going to earn every single game out of us, or damn near pretty much all of them, every single time you play us.
Yep. Tomorrow, Matt Boyd goes up against Webb. Gotta check his first name. Come on, load up MLB. Logan Webb, 0-3, 4.76 ERA, 124 WHIP. So that should be interesting. Matt Boyd, 0-1, a 400 ERA, but not terrible per se. A 156 WHIP. That's
basically, you're just hoping to see which pitcher delivers the better rebound start, because we saw some instances, like for example, Turnbull had a much better quality start, I felt, here than he did last week in opening day. Gave up one run through 5 or 6 innings pitch, and like for example today, the bullpen doing a tremendous job, even though what's his face.
Michael Lorenzen.
Yes, Lorenzen.
He gave up 6 runs.
Lorenzen gave up those 6 runs. The bullpen,
he got bailed out.
The bullpen held firm. They didn't give up a single run afterwards, and that gave the offense enough time to do what they need to do. And of course, like I said, the timely clutch hitting of Baez, like that 2-run double in the 8th, and then of course
Spencer Torkelson.
Exactly, his karma being rewarded with Torkelson knocking him in to tie the game, and then the walk off by Miggy. Who else in the 11th? So yeah, great day all around. I think this is the calming week that the Tigers needed after experiencing what they went through against. Because remember, they lost 6 straight games. Period. Considering going back to the Houston series. So they lost the last game against Houston, got swept by Boston, lost the first 2 against Toronto. Trust me, after the week they've had, they needed this 3-game win streak badly.
Yeah, so we'll see. We don't expect the Tigers to make a run for the playoffs or anything.
No.
But we'll see what happens.
You basically hope this
we
team
would only
can you hope this team can come close to actually trying to go for 70 wins, because let's be honest, after starting at 2-9, you were wondering, okay, can this team even get the 50 wins? So you feel much more calm about what this team's projection or ceiling could be after witnessing these past 3 games.
Yep. So again, we'll stay on top of them the whole season. So one more topic before we book everything. The Michigan State Spartans men's basketball team keeps Tyson Walker and Malik Hall each for a 5th academic term. So I believe they're keeping Joe this one after this past season as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Tyson Walker and Malik Hall are 2 other valuable weapons on
Of
offense
course.
as well.
Yes,
Tom Izzo's
Malik
squad.
Hall. Malik Hall gives you that veteran experience, and Tyson Walker gives you that high-end scoring energy, because he was their leading scorer last year, with about close to 15 points per game, 45% from the field, 41 from 3. So he gave you reliable, consistently good shooting for the most part. So when you consider the fact that you're getting that experience back with your lineup, plus the incoming recruiting class that you have, yeah, I wouldn't. I don't blame Spartan fans for thinking this could be a title contender. I would too. They have what it takes.
Well,
This
see
this
what happens.
this comes from Mr. Wolverine over here. Okay, so if I'm saying it, you know how legit I think this is something that could happen.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens the next season. So, with that being said, that is another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page and subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also on my Twitch at DT2Phillips1984. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Subscribe to me on YouTube at DT2Phillips. Also, follow Ed Smith on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at EdSmith313. Business shoutouts go to Cadillac Nutrition, Cali Tickets, Baldwin Family Health Care of Cadillac, thanks to their dental department, in large part run by students from the University of Michigan. Nice, huh? Creative Embroidery of Cadillac, Cuts by Melanie in Lake City, Edo Ramen House down in Royal Oak, rated Detroit's best Japanese restaurant, 248-556-5775, or EdoRamenHouse.com, or at Edo Ramen House on Instagram. Let's roll with it, ice cream in Cadillac, which will be soon branded on the name The Food Mafia. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac, 231-884-8195, and like them on Facebook. The Red Ox Tavern in Auburn Hills, United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, the Vig It mobile app, and Yen Yoga and Fitness in Traverse City. That is up northwest of the Mitten. So, we'll be back next week, or probably sometime next week when I get my new computer up and running. So for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Ta-ta for now. Hit him with a hind. We close our case.
Take care. Stay safe, everyone.